Welcome to our meeting for the purpose of considering and fixing the final budget today. We're here to take public testimony. We'll be doing that in a hearing format. Reminder that we needed you to sign up if you wanted to speak, and then we'll divide the number of speakers by the amount of time we have left and give you that much time to speak. This is going to be a public hearing, so I need a motion to open a public hearing. Call motion to open a public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Dose,
Yes.
Commissioner Zimmerman,
Here.
Commissioner Cassidy,
All right. Let me quickly go over the county rules for a public hearing. Signature sheet again. If you needed to sign this, if you want to speak today, nobody's permitted to speak until they've been recognized. All public hearing procedures shall be recorded electronically. Everybody please, when it is your turn to speak, come up to the microphone up there so that the clerk can get a recording of what is being said and everybody in the room can hear you. Please do not interrupt the speaker. If you have evidence of any kind that you wanted to submit, we ask that you submit that with 4 copies. People, if you have written evidence that you want to submit. Please engage in a respectful manner. Any action that disrupts the proceeding or endangers others would result in removal. And then once the hearing is closed, no further testimony will be presented or considered. Wanted to also point out that procedurally what we're doing is a little different than last year, but I understand it's more like what the county did in the past. Today is simply to gather public testimony. There will be no decisions made at today's meeting, okay? Tomorrow at 11:30, there will be a meeting of the board, a workshop where we can talk about final changes, and at 12 o'clock will be an official meeting to adopt the final budget. Today, the main purpose is simply to hear public comment and to get a few facts and things out of the meeting to get that started. So, of course, for opening remarks, I'll just comment and then let my fellow commissioners, if they want to. It's been an extreme challenge, as anybody in office knows right now. Inflation is cutting into the county's cash and our ability to provide services. The cost of doing business is rising. The county has been looking at, for several months now, different solutions. I want to thank the elected and the department heads who've helped us with cuts to budgets and freezes to budgets. Most budgets were held at or below what they were last year. We are actively again spending grant money to help carry us through some of these challenging times with our budget. We haven't continued to do things like negotiating new contracts and things to increase funds for the county. And we are actively considering a tax increase, which 3 cents per thousand, so about $7.50 a year for the average household in Shoshone County. Those are the things that we're considering right now, are in discussion. Nothing has been decided, nor will it be until tomorrow's meeting. Do either of my fellow commissioners have a comment? No.
Not this time.
Not at this time. Okay. Any of the other elected officials? Last chance to make a comment.
Would this be my time to make my comment?
Go ahead and take a couple minutes if you want to.
Yeah, okay. So a few weeks ago when we had the budget meeting where the sheriff's office was tasked with going and back to the drawing board and trying to cut $260,000 from the budget. And then we had the budget meeting that I couldn't make last week, where several decisions were made, but there was some explanation in the service losses that would happen with budget cuts that I would like to explain, if I may. So the proposal that we made for the cuts were already losing 1 detention position. We suggested that the county pay half the court security wage, that we would cut our reserve budget, which would mean a loss of 1 full-time river patrol on the Coeur d'Alene River in the summertime, and one part-time patrol on the St. Joe River through the entire year. And it would also be a 1 part-time job loss for an SRO position at the Kellogg Middle School. We then proposed to cut 2 full-time patrol deputy positions, which would be a loss of an SRO at the Kellogg High School which we would lose that contract. And the SRO contract isn't intended to make money. The contract was intended to work with the community to provide a safe environment for our kids, and you can't really put a price on that. So just to say that it wasn't about money, it was about protection for the kids. We would also lose one full-time coordinator for patrol position in the summer, and we would lose our newly established backcountry team who serves our remote communities like Murray, Pritchard, Calder, Clarkia, and Avery. We would also lose one dispatcher position, which all of these positions cause a series of things that happen with our budget, to include increases in overtime, schedule liability, especially in dispatch with one dispatcher on duty, answering 911s, taking business line calls. It causes mental fatigue, and it eventually causes an extreme absenteeism through calling in for sick for work, which causes more issues, and it just kind of dominoes. So with those losses in mind, I attached a sheet that would be a potential loss of services to Shoshone County. And I'm not gonna go over those, but what I did wanna go over is why that would happen. And let's just focus on patrol for a minute. Let's say we have 18 patrol deputies, and if we were to cut 2 of those positions, there's several factors that we need to consider when talking about those cuts. Because at any given time, there's several things that could be going on inside of our office that would impact our schedule. Some of those things are administrative leave for our staff, military leave, paternity leave, maternity leave, Family Medical Leave Act. Employees could be on workman's comp injury, they could be taking sick time, they could be going to mandatory training, or they could be on vacation, which can leave at any given time the schedule to be very, very slim. And when our schedule gets very slim, even now it does, we have to prioritize our call volume and take our priority calls, which is life and safety first over the non-criminal calls like VIN inspections or civil standbys. So that's the explanation for that. But all of those factors combined, what happens with our schedule is that the deputies that remain get a heavier workload. And that workload means taking more calls for service and taking more caseloads. The more calls for service and caseloads starts to compile, because a case can be anywhere from an hour-long investigation to 3 weeks or more. It could be several months. A case could require a search warrant, writing search warrants. It could require going through hours and hours of videos. It could require hours of interviews with witnesses, suspects. So each case it can be very lengthy, and the majority of them are. And on top of doing those cases, they're still taking those calls for services and more cases, and it just keeps compiling. And when that happens, the deputy gets extreme mental and physical fatigue, and then it impacts their personal life, it impacts their family life, it impacts their ability to be safe and at work and do their job effectively. When that happens, then you have those deputies calling in for sick time, which then burdens the rest of the team, and this domino effect occurs where the rest of the team starts to feel the fatigue, call in sick, and then you have people who quit their job, and most likely they would just go get a higher paying job, because every other job on the hill where they live is a higher paying job where they do less work than we do. On top of that, I gave you some handouts. I gave you a handout on the cost to hire a new deputy. I estimated it on the low end. On the low end, it's about $60,000 per hire. Broke it all down for you. You can look at that at any time. In the attachment there, I put the other crime response we do for the cities who have a police department, such as Osborne and Pinehurst. The county takes more calls for service in those cities than the city police do for those cities. We take a lot of reports for those cities. I broke down all the types of crimes we took for those cities. That would also be impacted if we lost personnel, because we wouldn't be able to take those calls for service unless it were live. Attached also is the crime rate comparison to our sister counties, because when we're talking about budgeting, we always compare to our sister counties. So in that packet is the crime rates for the sister counties, and there's highlighted in yellow, which is what Shoshone County, all the counties are highlighted in yellow, which is the crime rate for Shoshone County for all the counties, and you'll see that Shoshone County is almost double or more than the rest of the sister counties. You'll also see it highlighted in, I believe it's pink, that our clearance rate in Shoshone County is 82%, which is way higher than the other sister counties, which means a clearance rate is whether or not we're able to clear that crime assault. So not only are we taking more calls than our sister counties, but we're also clearing more cases than our sister counties. So I think that's something important to consider in any of these decisions. It's also important to mention that in 2023, Shoshone County was ranked third highest in crime in the state of Idaho, but that's not just the county, that's the sheriff's office. Shoshone County Sheriff's Office is ranked third in taking the highest crime rate per capita in the state. And in that packet, I attached what we have been ranked in since I think 2004, and we're usually number 1 or number 2. We finally made it down to number 5, and I currently run at number 3, but that's the sheriff's office, that's not the county. I think that's something important to consider as well. I'm almost done here. The last thing I wanted to bring up was the wages. There's a rumor going around that we were requesting raises for administrative staff, which is not true. We did not request any raises for administrative staff. But also I wanted to mention that our pay scale that we use, our matrix, is the industry standard for law enforcement. Law enforcement across Idaho and across the nation gets paid by certification level, or they get paid by time, certification level plus their time served as a deputy. If we go toward a socialistic approach to pay, I think that Shoshone County is deeply going to suffer from lack of applicants. Because also in that packet is a pay comparison to what you can get paid going over the hill, which is starting wage $30 an hour. I think Cooney County is $29 an hour, but Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene are $30 an hour for a starting deputy, which is something to consider. The whole point of changing the wage matrix when Mike Gunderson worked on that was what he called stop the bleeding, which is stop wasting taxpayers' money, hiring new people only to have them for a year, maybe 2 years for them to leave, because that's what happens. I also just wanted to mention that this morning I found out that by increasing the justice tax rate, it would have been 3 cents for every $1,000. So I think Commissioner Dose mentioned that, say on a $300,000 home, the tax increase would be $9. And I think $9 is a very minimal amount of money to pay to try and keep our law enforcement in our community strong.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Sheriff. Madam Clerk, do you have anything you want to say before we go to public comment?
No, that's on the levies.
Okay. All right, let me take the number of people who've asked to speak. Josh, did I hear you say you weren't speaking? Okay, so. So we will have 2 minutes per speaker. I'll remind you that we're still having a hearing after this for the ambulance. So if you wanted to speak about the ambulance, well, please wait and do so when we get to that one. So at this time, Robert Peterson, if you want to come on up to the microphone. And we'll have 2 minutes, and Heather, are you able to time for me?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Peterson, floor is yours.
We have this big issue about budgets. I'd like to point out that apparently the average deputy in this county is making approximately $50,000 a year. That's well above the median income of the residents of the county. So they become a special class. Absolutely special class. The sheriff here is making in excess of $80,000 a year. Have you ever considered diminishing your salary and putting it towards the deputy's pay? Or your other things that you're threatening to cut back on? Is that a consideration of yours? Or your administrative staff who doesn't go out and do patrol? If there's a deputy out on sick call, does the administration strap on a belt and go out and do the work? I have a fear that that's not the case. Your undersheriff was promoted from a jailer to undersheriff. Took him a year to get his post certification, and I doubt that he spent more than 10 hours on the road. But that's just a guesstimate. my point is, as a taxpayer here, I'm not inclined to support a special citizenry because they have a badge and a gun. Now, I will say that in my interactions with your deputies, they have been very professional. I think that's a holdover from Gunderson though. However, that said, they still don't deserve to be making so much more money in a county that is relatively quiet. I've been told that a number of your employees come from the Coeur d'Alene area, commute over here. Well, if the pickings are so much better over there, why are they coming down here?
That's time, sir.
I'm sorry, your time's up, thank you. And I'll just remind elected and commissioners, if you want to respond to questions at the end, we'll have time for that. Okay, next on the list, Matt Beaner.
Matt Beaner Wallace. I want to point out that what I'm bringing up is not the present sheriff's doing. It was the past commissioners that gave out the big pay raises that we couldn't fund. So starting out with Viva. Viva is a dinosaur. I think it needs to go away. It was put in because I was told before, because they couldn't give a pay raise one year, so they started Viva. Now it's down to $750. Just so everybody knows, in 2022, the first payment made on Viva was $125,000, I believe. It cost the county taxpayers. Second payment, I believe, was $130,000. I believe Viva needs to go. Sheriff's Office has raised the pay for elected officials, which wasn't Holly, from $52,536 in 17 to $86,963 in this year's budget. That comes out to a $34,477 raise for 7 years, or a 65% increase. Field deputies in 17 was $571,048. In this year's budget, they're $1,295,227. That comes out to a $724,179 raise, or 126.8% in 7 years. Jail administrator in 17 was $43,909. This year's budget, they're asking for $75,503. That comes out to a $31,594 raise in 7 years, or a 72% increase. Dispatch, 9/11, emergency, 17, they made $33,475. In this year's budget, they're asking for $66,545. That comes out to a $33,070 raise, or 98% pay raise.
That is time.
And I'm sorry, that's all your time for right now.
I relinquish my time. No.
And you are,
No, yes.
oh, gotcha, go ahead.
Other elected officials, I used Jerry Light because he was the first one on the list. He's the same as Kerry, same as the clerk. In 2017, made $49,146. In this year's budget, they're asking for $60,657, which might change. That comes out to $11,000 raise, or 23%. A lot less than the sheriff's office. Medical insurance premiums went up 5.9%. The county never even discussed giving it to the employees. It went to the taxpayers, even though a single employee pays $16 for their insurance. Back to the $16 for a single employee, the cost of the county is $700. Insurance for a family is $174 to the cost of the employee. The cost of the county is $1,778. Back to the resource officer. We've never made money, my understanding. We're losing money on this deal. And me, for one, I don't want to support the school district of Kellogg subsidizing. Either they pay their full share or with the benefits, or they come back to patrol. County employees allowed to drive the county cars from work to home. I don't think there's any policy on who gets to do that. That's a benefit. $207,000 was taken out of the sheriff's office budget for administration costs, and what was $15,000 was left in. That's for keeping their books, paying their payrolls, their bills, everything else. I don't think you're gonna find an administrator or bookkeeper for a $4 or $5 million budget for $15,000 a year. I don't think that ever should have been taken out.
And that is time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. Ms. Higdon.
I have 4 copies.
Thank you.
My name is Jan Higdon from Pinehurst. You have my comment letter. I'll skim through some of the things Matt talked about. Thank you for letting us comment today. You may recall that you were elected on a platform of reduced government spending and increased accountability. Many months ago, you noted the county was 1.7 million in the red and asked all departments to look at ways to reduce spending and increase revenue. Very little since then has been accomplished. I want to focus on employee wages and benefits in a general kind of form, not departmentally. I looked at the IACI website on their 2023 website for wage surveys, or the survey. And I looked at 7 other counties that were very similar in population to Shoshone. That would be Boundary, Franklin, Fremont, Gooding, Oahe, Teton, and Valley. With our population, we have about 300 more than the average of the 7 other counties. We have 2 more employees than the average of the 7. We have 17 more full-time employees than the average. We have 26 part-time, which is less than the 37. Wages overall was 5.319 million for the average, and we had 5.765 million. General fund expenditures was really bad, 5.276 million, and we spent 7.22 million, which is 2 million over. Most counties, their average was 30 hours before they could get benefits. We're 20. You could save money right there. Insurance costs, most counties pay 52 for
Commissioner
their,
Dose, that's time.
the employee pays
I'm
52.
sorry, Ms. Higdon, your time is expired.
Oh.
I am sorry. But I do want to thank you for giving us, thank you for actually putting it on paper. Yeah, yes, you can.
What's her name?
Tara Stone.
Thank you,
correct?
Tara. Yes.
Go ahead.
So anyways, we pay, the county, the taxpayers, pay a lot more than the average other counties for health insurance. So Shoshone County pays more for full-time employees with higher wages and spends almost 2 million more with the general fund expenditures than the average of 8 counties. The taxpayers pay much more of medical insurance costs for both individual employees and their families. And they pay less than I pay, and I'm on Medicare, and that's a pretty good deal. Matt talked about VIVA, so I won't do that. As an aside, the commissioners may be planning to use SLFRF funds to cover part of the budget shortfall. They do not seem to realize that these funds must only be spent in certain COVID-19 related issues, 31 CFR 35.6, blah, blah. I elected commissioners to be fiscally conservative and tax citizens as little as possible. I'm truly disappointed to see that the commissioners have not aggressively tried to reduce spending and are instead planning on increasing taxes. Shoshone County has almost 25% of its population on a fixed income, and many others only earn minimum wage. They appear to want to placate their employees more than those who voted them into office. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Higdon. Rachel Clark Cruzwell.
Hello, I'm Rachel Clark Kuzmark. I'm from Osborne. I've owned my house since 1997, which means I've been paying taxes since 1997. And I had a big stack of all the taxes that I've paid, and it's all broken down. And you can look at like the total amount of taxes everybody pays every year, and a lot of that has to do with like the school bonds and the school levies and all of that. But I was excluding that, and I wanted to just state some facts here because there seems to be a lot of people with, they're not really misinformed, they're kind of uninformed with what the taxes, what we've been paying for taxes for the last 20 some odd years. And that's because I haven't lived in Shoshone County and had to pay taxes for this long. And so I tried to simplify this just as much as I could. So in 2004, that was all the paperwork I could go back, the rest of it I had lost. But in 2004, I paid just for the county tax $257. That's all, $257. And that was 20 years ago. 6 years later, in 2010, I paid $145 for all of your services. And I think it's so interesting that we are making such a fuss over $145 that the county, all entities provide us with so many services and so many great things. 10 years after, so 2010, I paid $145 to the county. 10 years later, in 2020, I paid $189. I haven't even broken $200 for all of the services. In 2024, I paid $261, which is only $4 more than I paid in 2004. It is no wonder you all are scrambling for money because you have less money than you were getting 20 years ago. Now, with the increase of $7.50 that Mr. Dose alluded to, that would mean that it would increase $11.50 more than I was paying when I was paying taxes to the county in 2004. So I just wanted to put it on record for the newcomers to Shoshone County that our county is growing. Our county has grown. And
That's
last
time.
week, Mr. Zimmerman stated, I quote, "We don't have the money to grow, so we're growing, and there's no way back."
Thank you. Appreciate your thoughts. Mr. Damian Gross.
Damon Groves, President Kellogg. So we've been talking about wages a lot on this one. Mr. Zimmerman had said in the past that the wage matrix that the sheriff's office is using is outpacing everybody else. So I just ran the numbers around your guys' budget sheet. So the assessor's like 32% raise altogether for general fund, and not the sheriff's office, is over 16%. So you got some in there that they're 38%, 21%, 33%, 14%. County commissioners are 8%. The going rate for the sheriff's office, the justice fund, is 5%. So if they're raising their wages by 5% every year, and everybody else is raising their wages by over that, they are outpacing the sheriff's office then. Correct? That's my assumption on math then, right? Maybe they have more employees, so it costs more money, but the raises are actually a higher percentage for everybody else this year. And on the budget itself, the sheriff's office itself, the justice fund, is actually negative or minus $280,000 from last year. So they didn't raise their budget. Their budget's lower than it was last year. So you cut money from them that way. And then you also cut from the revenue in your sheet that you're using. Here's the revenue. You've cut them $500,000 out of the budget. And then on the thing that was presented to us today in the justice fund, you said that you were putting the defense fund back into it. It's not in it. And the thing you just handed up today. So it's right there, justice fund, sheriff's office, $3 million, safety building, $200,000, jail, $101.5 million, public defense, $600,000. That's what they all requested. What you put into it is $39,000. So you took out $600 and some $1,000. This is what you handed out today, and it's not in it.
That's not the vote. That's time.
I'm sorry.
Hey, I got one more thing for you. I don't think you're allowed to set time on this. The statute specifically says that we can address the court and anything we have, so you might want to take an opinion on that.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. David Hernandez.
So that was quick. My name is Dave Hernandez from Pinehurst. And I think we're not opposed to paying taxes because it's something that we cannot get away with, right? So if it was me, I would pay tax. However, we have services and we all benefit from it. So some of that money is going to all the departments and institutions that rule over us. So commissioners, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address my concerns regarding some of the spending that is going around, that is going around. You may remember back then when you guys were running on the premise that you guys were gonna look out for not raising the taxes as much as possible. Am I correct? You also promised to be transparent and accountable to the people that are to you. So after you took office, you discovered financial discrepancies and realized that the county was in a financial hole. And everybody's like, they're like, well, the tax is gonna go up because we are about 1.5 million in the hole. After, some research and everything, so it came out that we're not in that deepest hole. So we're about, a little over more than 0.5 million. So my point is this, that if the county doesn't have the money to spend, why or how do you excuse increased budget in certain departments, So if we don't have the money as a county, how do you excuse raising certain departments' budgets when the county doesn't have the money? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared Moody?
Jared Moody from Mullen, moved here 3 years ago, but I've lived in Idaho for over 20 years. And 3 weeks after I got here, I needed the assistance of the sheriff department with an issue that I had. Deputy that I spoke with took care of it. It was handled through the court, and their case was resolved, and I appreciate their work. My question today is, so does fixing the budget shortfall, does that fall solely on the responsibility of the taxpayer? Or is the administration and the commissioner willing to look at other ways of finding the revenue?
We'll address answers in a little bit.
Pardon?
We'll answer in a little bit.
Okay,
So that was your own question?
thank you. Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right. We're running out of time. Do we have any elected that would like to respond? Starting with the commissioner.
I'd like to respond.
Go ahead.
So I'd like to respond to Mr. Grove's comment on the assessor. That was from moving on the position assessor raised at 30-some%. That was from moving a position from appraisal to assessor. But if you really want to do apples to apples, look at the last 2 years, compare the last 2 years. The sheriff's office is significantly higher 2 years ago, and I guess the rest of us were holding even. I can tell you, we have not seen a 30-some% increase in any of my departments. Matter of fact, my DMV is down probably 15-20% over 2 years. The appraisal and the assessor budget are even. I would guess maybe a 3-4% increase in that time frame. And then you talk about training and keeping people on staff. Any of my appraisers could go over the hill and triple their money. So what works for the sheriff's office works for the other departments also. I'm not saying none of you deserve what you're making, far be it, but we're all in the same boat. I think for the buck, every county employee deserves a pat on the back and a lot more compensation what they're getting. The last 2 years, cost of living is up over 10%, and none of us have got a cost of living. So we just keep going backwards and backwards and backwards. Over the last 20 years, I would guess, well, let's say the last 5 years, cost of living gotta be up around 15, 16, 17%. And none of our wages, none of our departments are reflected even close to that. So it's tough. I mean, I've been here 22 years and we've been looking for new revenue for 22 years. And I guess you times that by 5. I mean, the county's hands are tied. We get 3% increase in our budgets. That's about it, minus new construction. So it's a struggle, and we're all in this together. But again, we're all in this together. So,
Thank you, Mr. Assessor. Any other elected?
I'd like to explain a little bit about levies. The $662,000 from public defenders, it was a levy that was made on the Justice Fund of last year. That Justice Fund, the public defenders that are going away, it's the state of Idaho's taking that public defense expenses away from the county. So the $662,000 that we levied last year for that public defense actually stayed the same amount as the levy rate, went to the sheriff's office this year. So then what we did with the levies, in order to keep the taxes down to that 3%, I went through the different levies and reduced the district court levy, I reduced solid waste, so that it stayed within the tax, for the taxpayers, down to that 3 cents per thousand. That's how we did that. The 3% is always within your L2, and which is not provided to you guys yet because it hasn't been approved. So once that L2, you may want to come in and come to the office and I'll explain that to you.
Okay. We're about out of time. We have to start the next hearing. Is there any other comments? Yes. Okay. All right. Then I entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Moved. Seconded. Roll call.
Commissioner Dose,
Yes.
Commissioner Zimmerman.
Here.
Commissioner Cassidy.
Okay, so what we will do is take your thoughts into consideration and along with all the things that we've mentioned. And we will meet again tomorrow at 11:30 to discuss where we are with the budget, and at 12 o'clock to approve some final version of the budget. And with that, we need to close so that we can open the next budget meeting 10 minutes later. So we are adjourned for about 2 minutes while we start the next meeting for annual.